So thank you very much, Maurice. It's a real pleasure to be here. And we certainly have a fascinating programme ahead of us. And I'm really looking forward to the presentations and the debates that will ensue on this crucial subject. But it's my pleasure to introduce the first speaker of this conference, Ruth Oniang'o. Ruth has had a very distinguished career. She's served on the boards of many different organisations, including the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for Agricultural Strategy, the International Fertiliser Development Centre, the board of IRRI, and also IFPRI. And she currently serves on the Nestle board, as well as our Creating Shared Value Advisory Council. Ruth has received many distinguished awards, including Fortune magazine as one of the most innovative women in food and drink. Ruth is currently adjunct professor of nutrition at Tufts University in the US. And I think it's very appropriate that Ruth is the opening speaker of this conference, as she's done so much to promote food and nutrition security in the developing world. So I'd like to welcome Ruth, and she's going to present on 3 decades of working with a community to return to food and nutrition security in Western Kenya. So thank you very much, Ruth.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope I can see you. I come from Kenya, so we say jambo. And please relax, yeah? I like people to relax. I've come a long way, thanks to Maurice, whom I met a little over a year ago. And he mentioned this conference, and then he went quiet, and I said, I hope he doesn't come back. And then he came back. And fortunately, I didn't look at the map to see where Saskatoon was, because I wouldn't have come. Just wanted to show you where. Okay. I don't like PowerPoints, by the way. They have let me down many times before. But I just have to show I put some work into this presentation. I just can't come all this way without having to prepare for it. So I have people in my team who assisted me. But I wanted to show you. Look at that. So I was asking myself when I checked in, Saskatoon, the lady said, where is that? I said, Canada. Oh. Then Paris, okay. For 8 hours, 8.5 hours, Kenya Airways. In Paris, 4 hours. Then Air Canada to Toronto, 8 hours. Then, oh, in Toronto, 3 hours. Then to Saskatoon, 3.5 hours. Wow, look at so many miles. It is nice to be here. I remember my geography. We learned about Saskatchewan. I remember in high school producing a lot of wheat. I remember, I think they still produce a lot of wheat. So, and I saw your mayor on TV the other day. He sounded so good. The mayor was actually talking about diversity and what a great city this is. And then I walked around. It felt like Nairobi, and I felt, I guess it's okay, yeah? So thank you for having me here, Maurice, and everyone else. I serve on those boards not because I'm an expert, no way. And not because I'm special in any way, not at all. People just know I ask too many questions. Just, okay, bring her, then she can ask all the good questions. And then we can maybe do something about what she asks. I spent all my life talking about nutrition. You know, I won a scholarship to go to the US. I was 1 out of 5, the only girl. And then I ended up in Pullman, Washington State. It was so far away from my parents, you know. And when I went back, if you asked me with my master's degree, you know, what are you going to do when you go back to Africa? I said, I'll rid Africa of all that malnutrition. Can you imagine I'm still fighting and I'll go to my grave still fighting, because I'd seen children with kwashiorkor and marasmus and big tummies full of worms, you know? And I said, and I know the hunger pangs, and I know it's not right for anyone to be hungry. Then I come to North America, too much food, too much choice. You go to the supermarket, you can't even make up your mind. You know, you get your servings, and they say, can I just get a small salad? When it's a small salad, it's a big plate like this. And each time I eat here, I think of the people who are going hungry, you know, all these years. So that's what I do, you know. But it's been an okay journey. So I went back to Kenya, and I started to teach at the university, to do research, and so on. And look, when I reached about 40 years old, the lifespan of Kenyans was about 44. So I knew I would be dying soon. I say, and in my culture, when you die, you are in Nairobi, you actually go back and you are buried in your village. So I said, so when they bury me, they'll be looking at me, and they'll be saying, what has she ever done for us? We brought her up, she went away, and she came back, and now we have to bury her, and what is all this? And that's what actually informed me starting the NGO. So I started the NGO because I was afraid that I would be buried by people who didn't know who I was and who were hungry and who have come there just because they can eat some food. So I started this NGO, and it is just part of the story that I'm going to share with you. But I like the messages that have been coming up to from the previous speakers, that we really have to work in partnership. We can all help each other, and it's not all lost. And I can tell you that my speech now is very different from what it used to be. I was complaining. I went back to Kenya. I couldn't travel around Africa because to go to another African country, you are to go into Europe and then back to Africa. But it's a lot better now. And for those of you who come from Kenya, who come from Africa, and there are some here, I know you are here already. Okay, hands up, anybody who has been on the African continent. Hands up. You see, you didn't just Google it, right? So it's not too far away, yeah? It's not too far away. It's a lot easier now, I must say. It's a lot easier now. It's frustrating for someone like me who decided to stay on the continent, but I've seen a lot of changes, and I know especially young people. I meet young people in the rural areas, you know, where there's no electricity, no proper toilet, you know, it's pit latrine. But at least if you are in Kenya, you can internet, you can call your parents from anywhere, thank God for the internet, you know? Yeah, so I'm happy the internet is here, and I'm able to enjoy it before I call it quits. But the young people, the millennials, you know, are daring to go. And now they come to what has always been known as the dark continent. You know, unfortunately, it's dark and dark people, sub-Saharan Africa. Yet, I see many opportunities for research, many opportunities to make a difference, many opportunities to stop you from being bored, and many opportunities to apply all these nice technologies, so long as you understand the culture. It's a complicated continent, by the way. So let me show you. That's Africa. Do you know it is 54 countries? Sub-Saharan. 54 countries. Not a China. You know where you have one regulation? And I'm just showing you where Kenya is. So many tribes, so many regulations, so many languages, very complicated. Even the Green Revolution couldn't work there. We need to call it a different kind of a revolution. So what happened then was that I started an NGO way back in the early 90s, and the idea was, let me go back to my people. I travel a lot, I come back, and let me do something in a small way where I come from. I don't have to go too far, I don't have to reach the whole world. If I can point out someone to you whose life has been changed because of what we have done, then I'll not mind to have done that. So my area was actually growing sugarcane, but previously, these pulses you are talking about in Saskatchewan, we also had all these legumes, very rich diet. Otherwise, I would be stunted, you know, because it had a good diet. We were eating all this. They are not there anymore. We're just trying to bring them back. But they went into sugarcane production. 10 years later, there were signs of hunger, signs of malnutrition in the same area. And yes, the so-called development was there because now you could see corrugated iron sheet houses. You could see people with bicycles. Still the roads were too bad. There was no power. You know, children could be sent to school. You know, but I did action research while I was at the university, and it was following the results of that research that I decided then to have this NGO. But what I discovered as I went in is that young people is better to intervene with them in school rather than working with much older people whose minds are already set. They are happy to be poor, they are happy to live in their little houses, but at the end of the day, the children just want to be like me and be able to fly and go to different parts of the world. So I work a lot with young people. We hold field days, we have a mission there, I'll go through this quickly. I love the women. You can rely on the women anytime. You can rely on an African woman anytime. The men, I'm not sure of. Yeah, I don't know what they do. So I work with the women. 3/4 of who I work with are women, and the men, I love you and I'll give you an award if you support the women. And I tell them, you like to be heads of households, but the women are the backbone, and there's no head without a backbone. My age has helped me as I age now, so I'm just like the men. Anyway, I'm better than the men as I age, because the women in Africa, by the way, the older women are listened to more than the men. Yeah, their word is final. So for the first time now when I'm in the village, I don't mind being this age. So we intervene through the women. We do a lot with the women, but we do it in a way that we don't put them at risk. We make sure the men also support them. We make sure the administration, the local governments, the opinion leaders also support the women. And we show them what the women are capable of. And really, after 3 decades, finally, I think it's paying off. It's making a huge difference. Because with very little money, the women will feed their families, will feed the same men that don't do anything, will make sure their children go to school, will save, and will have money when nobody expects them to have money. So my message there is, we don't have enough financing for women. We don't have enough support for women. We don't have enough donors who come and help those of us who work with the women. It's a lot of it rhetoric, by the way. Yet all research findings show, especially in Africa, that if you want to make a difference, you work with the women. Water, we start with water. Water is life. Can you imagine water? We still get that kind of water? How can you avoid disease when you drink that kind of water? So we go into a community using water. Water is apolitical, is non-partisan. Everybody likes water. The men get involved in excavating. It's an old technology just to get that clean water. The government has a big program for water, but at the end of the day, when we work with very little money, the community involved, we get clean water. It saves the women as well. Hospital, you know, Healthcare. I go around North America and hospitals are empty, actually. You don't see emergencies, you know, unless there has been an accident or someone is suffering a heart attack. But beds full in a hospital, no. But here, people die from very little things. Malaria, high fever, diarrhea. A woman producing, she has to be carried on a wheelbarrow. A woman died in my car. She was called Ruth, and it has never left my head. So we've been putting up a community hospital, making sure there's water as well to help the community. My message here is that it's not just agriculture, by the way. No wonder we haven't done much to make a difference. You don't just go say, this is a technology, produce more food, let's feed the children. The women will be asking you, okay, how does my child go to school? Where is a hospital? I need one around, yeah? So you just have to be involved in the community. And when you are a professor or you have a doctorate, you are a doctor for everything. Maybe you are the only one in that village. So they rely on you. So they rely on me, so I make use of my connections. And, you know, so what I do is my own personal capital actually is present in that, yeah. So yes, nutrition, critical, but if the water is not good, it can't be. And then we get some funding. Right now we have some funding to work on soils. And for those of you who are soil scientists, by the way, I'm not a plant scientist. I'm not a soil scientist. I'm food science, nutrition. But I started asking myself, where does the food come from? Who produces it? I discovered it's the women. What are they eating? How do we encourage them to eat? Where are they growing more? They may have only a quarter of an acre of land, but they can produce more. Why are the yields higher? You know? So that's how we started going backward. Now, that's a huge difference. And thank God, when I worked, I was on the IFDC board, that's when I understood soils. Those are the ones they invited me to be on the board. I said, what am I going to do with soils? I don't know anything about soils. I said, oh, Ruth, you know, you just asked the right question. So I started to look at the soils. Yeah, that's, you know, those are the women, you know, a medical camp and some of that, education, value chain, saving what you produce, food safety. I would go to the village, they have harvested maize. This was a running story. They sell it immediately, otherwise weevils would affect it. Finally, I came across these pick bags, you know, the Purdue bags for actually keeping the maize. Now they are shocked. They are shocked after a year. No chemical application. The maize is whole. It has no weevils. And the farmers are encouraged. They can keep their one bag, their two bags. They can sell when the price is good. They can eat good food, which does not have chemicals. Because cancer has become endemic, and they are blaming it on GMO, on all kinds of things, on Western food. Yeah, look at that maize now. They are enjoying their maize now. They can see it. Yeah? So soybean was finally accepted. Why? Because it's good for the soil. Coming from North America, knowing soybean is the only plant source that is equivalent to whose protein is equivalent to meat, you know, and we try to promote it, they say no way. But they were actually able to take this. We tried it on the soils. The next season, the yields were better. They said, oh, if these soybeans are good for our soils, then they must be good for us. Completely unexpected. Completely unexpected. So we teach how to use soybean and how to eat it, how to improve nutrition, and it is also helping their soils, and they are realizing soils are important. So what have we learned so far? Culture. I'm coming to almost to the end, but the culture, understanding the culture. Even I, coming from that community, could not say that I understand that culture. I went there to improve child nutrition. And they were asking me, who told you that we don't take good care of our children? Meantime, the children are malnourished. The children have worms. The children don't look good. So I decided to go do something else. Now I can come back to child nutrition. Respect. Dealing with families, communities respectfully. Mutual respect. You know, if you come imposing because you have your PhD, you have come from wherever, they just laugh at you, you leave, and that's the end of the story. Inclusiveness. Yeah, those men I talked about, by the way, I just still involve them because I need them to take care of the women. So I'm very good to them. When they see me, they do the right thing. I say, I'll come back, you better still be doing the right thing. Yeah. So then the family unit, you know, get families involved as a whole unit, monitoring to review what you have done, going back. And because it is my own area, we are able to expand in the same region. But I'm also able to go back and to see where we have come from over the last 3 decades. That's how long it has taken. But I'm able to take some of those same lessons that they cut across. You know, when you talk of respect, it's the same across the world, you know? And the legal environment, working with the government and government policy, and making sure we do the right thing, and having people to value science, to respect science. You know, we can't solve any of the problems we have if we don't respect research. And our budget was just read in Kenya, and it's amazing that no money was put towards agricultural research. I can't believe this. I mean, in the 21st century. Financing for women, I cannot overstate this message. If you truly want to help that continent, you go through the women. And I support women scientists as well. I mentor them, whether virtually, through my journal, or physically. I have them around my office. I send them to meetings. I look for fellowships for them. And I do the same for young men, by the way, also. Long term. You know, donors come with 3-year projects. I don't know what 3-year is. If I stuck on 3 years, I will not be here. So when there's no money, I'm still there, by the way. People need to see you. The first year, the money comes. Second year, the donor wants to visit. Last year, we want the reports, and that's the end of the story. You go back 10 years later, there's nothing. So financing, if they want to do it, they better be there for the long term. Then sharing knowledge, partnerships, we achieve more when we are collaborating with each other. And whether it is Saskatoon here in Nairobi, you saw the link is there, whether it is what, but I think the rest of the world has a lot to do to share, and that at the end of the day, nutrition and malnutrition affects all of us. Obesity right now is the most endemic form of malnutrition. It's not affecting just the developed world, but it's affecting us, even as we deal with malnutrition still, undernutrition, and so on. And so we all in this together, and that people are now questioning more and more the quality of what they eat. So you can't anymore just give people food because they're hungry. They want to know what is in there. What is it going to do for me? And so that finally the nutrition I studied, which didn't make sense to many people, the millennials, especially the young people, whether in the North or in the West, are saying, what is in this food? Where does it come from? Now everything is, we want it organic, we want it grown next door, we want it fresh, we want it gluten-free, we want it non-GMO, no chemicals, and at the end of the day is, what are we going to eat? But here, you know, you have choices, but there are many people without choices. But I think there's enough food to go around. To tell you the truth, there's enough food to go around. Because when I see how much is wasted, I say, oh, maybe it's not wasted. It becomes manure, you know. It becomes fertilizer. Because it is biodegradable. But the will needs to be there. And it takes people like yourselves, far away as you are from Africa. I saw, do you grow pineapples here? I saw a pineapple, you know, on my breakfast plate. I thought maybe it came from, maybe I came with it from Kenya. So food can move around. It just needs goodwill, political will, but all of us working together. It needs the industry to understand that people need good food, good nutrients, even with the fiber in it, even as it is processed. People need food to be fresh, and policymakers to understand, and scientists to allow scientists to do their work. But even as scientists, you have to go beyond your laboratory. Because when you do the science, who are you doing it for? If you're an agricultural scientist, who does your work benefit? And I think eventually you get bored. I got bored very easily myself. I stopped working in the lab when I saw the problems in the field. But I value everybody for what we do, because without what you do, I have nothing to take to the field and try to apply there. So I want you to enjoy this conference. I'll be around throughout, and if you want to come to Nairobi, just let me know. I'll meet you at the airport. You can come to the village, and you'll have fun. And you'll actually make a difference. I promise you. We have many partners. Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Ruth. Questions for Ruth, please?
It's very bright. I know.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for that inspiring discussion. And let me just raise one point that you talked about with respect to food waste. And it's pretty clear in rich countries, you know, in North America and so on, where we have these big plates of food served in the restaurants and then only half of it's eaten. There's probably an awful lot of waste. What do you see in your village in terms of food supply and food waste? Is this something that is actually true around the world, or is it something that every calorie counts in the places that you know so well?
I've known that when it is in harvest time and there's plenty of food, they serve a heap of food. But it doesn't get wasted because the dogs have to eat, and the chickens, and everybody eats, and the rest of it is thrown to the field, you know, to work as manure. But then a lot of times there is not enough to go around. And it also depends on where you are. Yeah, it really depends on where you are. But in the rural areas where they grow, yes, the tendency is waste it when you have it, and then within 4 or 5 months, you don't have enough. Yeah.
I've got another question for you, Ruth. You mentioned about the traditional crops had been replaced by sugarcane. And you talked a little bit about soybean, but what's the progress in getting back to some of the other traditional crops in your area?
Oh, yeah. Again, this is Western Kenya, you know, a region. Kenya is a population of 45 million. So Western Kenya is more or less a productive area, about 6 million people. And that's where sugarcane has been growing. Actually, farmers themselves are uprooting sugarcane. Farmers themselves are uprooting sugarcane, because we are working with them to show them that it's better to grow food. There's demand for food elsewhere. So long as you link them to markets, there's actual demand for food. And it's not just now soya. I gave soya just as an example, but this is an area which can grow anything and everything. And I know pulses, they want to grow them to export to India. But I'm telling them, but you need the pulses here. So ensure your own food security as well, but it can also act as a cash crop. So yes, we are now bringing back the traditional foods and promoting healthier diets. Yeah, that even if you eat from outside, these are healthy diets, and a lot of it you can grow locally, and some of what you grow locally you can sell as well, because there's demand for it. Yeah.
Could you ask the status of GMO
What's the acceptance of GMO in Kenya?
I think we have a session on policy soon. Is it Wednesday or Thursday? I think we have a session on that. I'll talk about that. But it's been like a 7-year story. It's been so difficult. But finally, we had a biosafety legislation, and the idea was, let's just pass the biosafety legislation, because without it, you cannot reject GMO. You cannot say you are accepting or rejecting. So it finally passed. So then, the GMO was now, they were allowed, the parliament passed it to be tested in enclosed environment, but just 2 months ago, it can go into farmers' fields. And for me, it's not a question of whether I like GMO or not. I travel so much, I'm sure I eat a lot of whatever is out there, personally. But I feel that for science to progress, we shouldn't close our minds. I mean, that's the whole idea that I have myself. But the attacks on GMO are there anyway. But we have moved on as a country then, that we can move to farmers' fields. Yeah.
Hello, question at the mic. I used to work in Africa about 30 years ago. And in the 70s, the crop yield of cereals was about 1 ton per hectare. About 40 years later, there is a progress in some countries such as yours, Ghana, Zambia, but most countries still 1 ton per hectare of cereal.
Yeah.
What do you think can you do when you mentioned about the yield gap?
Yeah.
5 tons per hectare is possible.
Yeah.
So what is holding it back?
Yeah. As I said earlier, you know, Africa, I wish it was just a China, you know, or an India. Then you just have one people you are dealing with. You know, we have all these, I call them artificial boundaries. It needs the African Union itself to realize the partnership, and that together we start to benefit if we work together and if we harmonize some of the legislation. Actually, it's the politics which messes up people. And so you can come to Kenya where we are more liberal, and so long as we have a policy, you come, you know Ruth, you arrive in a village or whoever else you have in Kenya, and you can do a lot with the farmers. But there's another country, you have to start at the top. By the time you reach the bottom, you have given up. So it's very, very, very difficult. But the scientists, some of you here who have worked in the villages and with the farmers, you know very well that managing those soils, using those technologies, you can actually make a huge impact in terms of the yields. So I think the answer is just in making sure that the African Union does what it's supposed to do, and at the country level, we work with the communities, and we are able to do that and make a difference.
And a very big thank you to Ruth,
Thank
and
you.
plenty of time to interact with her during the conference.
Thank you.
Ruth.
Thank you.
So it's now my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Gary